Good afternoon to the viewers of Tax Sutra. Thank my dear friend Arun and Vikrant for seeking my views on the budget 2022. This budget is an important budget considering few reasons. The reason number one, there is a recession in the global economy. China is struggling, Europe is struggling, and there is a lot of positivity around India. And the reports have suggested that India has become a third biggest economy. Second, India's growth story is significant. And people believe, and I'm very optimistic about it, that the next decade belongs to India. In addition to these two important factors, the domestic factor also plays an important role. India's domestic market is growing up. India's economic resilience and recovery has shown a remarkable progress. And the last but not the least, this is the last budget for this government, for this term, and next budget is going to be a vote of no account. Considering all these reasons, the budget has raised various expectations. Though there are various sector-specific proposals are being discussed, and last week there is a news item that the government is opening up the foreign universities in India, which is a very welcome move. But I'm going to focus exclusively on direct taxes as to what is the task before the government and what are the things that is expected for a common man and what the government should do. So my specific bites is going to be on direct taxes. In the past, the government has done a significant reform on the direct taxes, reducing the rate of tax to 25%, introducing the lower rate of 15% for manufacturing companies, brought up e-assessment, introduced some of the tax administrative reforms. And the government was serious in making sure that the tax regime works favorably to the taxpayers. The government expressed its intent multiple times in the past. Yes, there were challenges, most on the e-assessment stage, where the government had a great noble intention of easing out the challenges on the assessment, yet the implementation took a little bit back beating on the e-assessment. Second, the government is very serious enough in reducing the litigations. And last year, there was a significant proposal on the litigation side. But the disposal of the appeals is a matter of concern. Third, on personal taxation, the government reduced the rate of tax and gave the reduced rate of tax on certain conditions. On the whole, the government was serious enough in easing out the challenges and also making sure that tax as a legislation is a friendly legislation and the taxpayers get a honest treatment. The government was serious enough in implementing it. But I would like to admit there are few challenges on that side. Now, the task before the government is in this budget is that, for me, I would like to look at few priority areas. Priority area number one, bringing out a transparent and bringing out a transparent tax administration, which would facilitate the taxpayer. In this process, the government should aim to address the challenges of the taxpayer in e-assessment or in the regular assessments. While the government has made its intention very clear to address the discretionary powers, but less it has been done. And therefore, the ask before the government, in my view, should be to ease out the challenges in the tax administration. In this context, I would like to bring Dr. Parthasarathi Shome report on tax administration and reforms. And I am urged the government to implement this report in letter and spirit. And therefore, my first task before the government is on the tax administration. The second task before the government, for me, in my view, is while I welcome the government for having introduced a 15% rate of tax for manufacturing companies, but India, with a kind of talent and the kind of human intelligence that we have, India should be positioned for a good research and development side, good research and development hub, because a solid research and development hub will accelerate the manufacturing. That is what the intention of the government. We cannot be a destiny only for doing a screwdriver technology, but we should be a hub for manufacturing. And for that, encouraging the research and development is very, very important. Therefore, I urge the government to introduce a lower rate of tax for the companies that are exclusively engaged in research and development. Because conscious and an advanced scientific and technology is very, very important for developing the manufacturing base in India. And therefore, I urge the government to look at research and development in a more, what I would call in a positive way, and encourage the research and development to support the manufacturing. The third important ask before the government, from my perspective, is addressing the issues surrounding on employment generation. While employment generation is an important ask before the government as an overall social concept, but the government should encourage the companies who are creating an employment generation so that a fiscal incentive in the form of a tax reduction would allow more companies to create an employment generation, because employment generation is an important aspect. In this context, we have a provision called 80JJAA under the Provisions of Income Tax Act. And I would like the government, instead of having 80JJAA, I would like the government to bring that provision into the, as a weighted deduction under the provisions of the Income Tax Act, so that any company that employs significant people and creates an employment generation should get 150 or 200% of the salaries and wages paid as a reduction, basis the number of employees and basis the type of employment the companies are creating it across. Because employment generation is key for this country, and at this point of this occupies the most important social objective for the government. The fourth important aspect for me from the government, from the tax side, is that there are enough grievances for the taxpayers. And when I'm talking about the grievances, I'm talking about the grievances from the administration side, either omission or failure to or inappropriate passing of orders without taking and giving a opportunity to the taxpayers and putting the taxpayers into very difficult situations. There are multiple grievances that taxpayers have got in the administration of tax. And I would like the government to look at these grievances, create some sort of exclusive grievance cell attached to the Ministry of Finance by which the grievances can be addressed. The next important ask before the government is on capital gain taxation. The government should make a comprehensive reform on capital gain taxation. Remove the distinction between various categories of assets on long term and short term. Make it simple. Whether it is 1 year, 3 year, remove all the distinctions, make it simple. Keep the tax rate as simple, as good as 10% and remove all the exemptions and deductions. Keep it capital gain tax simple. Make a comprehensive reform on capital gain taxation because that is a need for the hour as it would enhance the liquidity for the taxpayers. The next important ask from me to the government is on personal taxation. Though the government reduced the rate of taxation 2 years back and gave us an option for the taxpayers, I would urge the government to make the personal taxation slabs at very simple rates, 10, 15, and 20 and 25%. And the surcharge should be incremental to the slabs, not a flat surcharge at all the levels, because that would help the government to address the individual taxpayers' issues, and it also will leave some money for the individual taxpayers, which would revive the supply side. Which would revive the demand side of the economy, and that would help the taxpayers to spend more money. On international taxation, while APAs have progressed well, but the government should look at it, the possibility of expediting all the advanced pricing agreements and making it clear that the taxpayer, that is a minimum time limit that should be given up for completing the APAs. Today, advanced pricing agreements takes anywhere between 3 to 4 years or 5 years, or even a unilateral APA. So I urge the government to prescribe a time limit in the legislation by which the APAs should get completed. In addition to that, the government should also address the litigation issues on international tax so that the overseas investor gets a clarity and certainty on the tax issues. On the whole, while I have multiple wish lists, but these are all the minimum issues that the government should address in the current budget that would provide more clarity, certainty, and also ensure transparency to the taxpayers. Thank you.